Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today I'm doing a project for the Scrap FX design team and it's looking at keyhole art journal pages. So these pages were designed by Michelle Logan. I'll give a link to her Instagram page in the description box. And she did this beautiful piece of work with this new stencil from Scrap FX, which is called the She stencil. And I absolutely adored how it worked, and it kind of tied in with a technique I've been playing with already in my art journals, using the botanical stencil from the Dina Wakley mixed media line. So I'm going very monochromatic with these spreads, and in this spread, the mermaid spread, I'm using all the Dina Wakley blues. So I think that's sky, turquoise, mineral, night, lapis, ocean, peacock and marine. I think I use all of the colours. I'm pretty sure I do. And you can see me on my glass mat just putting out a little bit of each of the colours of paint. And the reason I'm doing this is the way that I'm going to sponge on the paints. I've found that when I'm doing this, I wanted to get sort of some soft mixed colours. So you can see me there with the white and the sky. I'm just sort of mixing them together, not really mixing them. So I've got bits of white and bits of blue sort of coming through. And that gives you a really cool effect in the background. The mineral that you saw me put on the page to begin with is a sort of bluey grey colour. So it just gives a different effect, and it means the white can pop out against something. If I'd just done it straight in the white page, you wouldn't get that lovely mixed colour coming up with the white. Now, because this is a layered page, I'm needing to make sure that I heat set in between. Because I'm sponging on using a makeup sponge, however, and you can see me sort of tap out the paint on the sponge beforehand, it's really only a thin layer of paint that's going on, so it doesn't take that long to dry. On this page, I'm using a combination of stencils and masks. So at the moment, I'm using a mask where you put it down and stencil around it and you get a more solid block of colour down. And the reason I'm using that is when I put my stencils over the top, you've got some more colours to bounce off. You'll also see it sort of overlaying. So by putting the mask down, you're getting some of those colours trapped from below and you're seeing them as you go through. So now I'm using a stencil, which is the more traditional way, I suppose, to work, and going in with some darker colours over the top. This stencil in particular, this part of the stencil in particular, is one of my favourites. I've been loving using it. And I'm really enjoying this, mixing all the paints together to get these really cool effects. It gives you sort of a really variegated colour without trying very hard. You can also overlay them, and by putting sort of lighter colours and darker colours before and after each other, it sort of pops them out from the back. So by putting this dark colour, that's going to pop it out to the front. Putting the light colour on is going to push it into the background. There's also different sizes of the stencils here, so you can sort of be really creative in how you use them to make them work together. So you can see I've kind of put my lighter colours at the back and my darker colours at the foreground, just to sort of give that natural depth to the page. Mind you, I've just blown that by putting some whiter colours at the front. So I really love this as it is, and the next step takes a little bit of bravery to do, as those people who have been following my channel, my other channel for a while, know when I'm doing reductive painting. You've got these beautiful backgrounds, but then you're going to paint over them. And in the end, I kind of lose that whole left-hand side page, but I don't mind it because I know I've got something pretty underneath. So this is the She stencil, which is a new release from Scrap FX. And it's this sort of dancing woman with her hands out behind her and her hair flowing out behind her. But I've worked out by sort of turning it upside down and pointing it downwards, it could represent a mermaid. So what I'm doing now is just putting some black so it really stands out, and then dulling it down by sort of mixing in some whites and some of those dark blues to blend it into the rest of the page. I didn't want to really stark sort of black and into the colour page. I wanted it to kind of blend in. So this mask gives you a really handy way of being able to do that. So you can see I'm sort of adding in some white and then working back into the blues and into the black. So I've got a good contrast. When I take away that mask, you can see the colours from underneath. So not all of it gets hidden. You get that beautiful, interesting background. So again, I'm going in and heat setting this just to make sure it's dry, and scraping off some of the black paint that's gone onto some previous pages. Now I'm going to put the mask back down again because I'm going to spritz some gold ink and some white ink over the top to sort of represent the bubbles in the ocean. Now, my way of doing this gets it everywhere, but I use a fan brush, and I find I get lots of really interesting big blobs and little blobs of paint as I do it. I do have some splatter brushes from other companies, but I always revert back to using this. Just make sure that if you are really concerned about splashes, you have a splatter guide up. I don't, so my pens are all covered in inks. I don't mind that, but you may prefer not to have that much splatter going on. So once I finished the page, I broke out my use it up journal because I had a lot of paint left over which I didn't want to waste. So this is my large Dilutions journal. I'm just going in, I'm not cleaning my paintbrush in between, I'm just using up all the paint, and I'm going to have a really interesting page that I can do something with. I'm really actually looking forward to using this page in some way, shape or form. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, but that's my job today, is to tackle it and see what I'm going to do. So I'm putting sort of a mixture of dark and light colours together, blending them in together, so you've just got this really cool monochromatic effect in the background. On the left hand side page, I had a lot of the blacks left over, so I'm just going to sort of water down the black and fill in my page with the black. So there is a bit of a wait in between while I'm using up all the paint, but I think it's really important that you don't waste anything, and I'm a big believer in having a journal that you can just put extra paint in and have it sitting there for one day when you have some inspiration that you can go back and have a look. So you've got these pre-done backgrounds ready and waiting for you. So once I've cleaned up my page on my desk, I'm now going to go back in. I'm trying to find it at the moment. This beautiful silhouette from Scrap FX, which is a keyhole design that's got a mermaid in it. And I'm going to insert that onto my page, and to make it look a little bit interesting, I'm using some book page in the background. Now when I originally got these keyhole designs, I'd actually thought that I was going to use them in a altered book, which is why I immediately picked up the book text to use as my background. I wish now, looking at it, that I'd actually put the keyholes straight down the page just to see what it looked like. I didn't even think about it at the time because I had this strong idea that I wanted to use the book text behind it. But I like the idea of connecting the artwork to a book or a novel. Now in the second piece that you're going to see, that you don't see me make on screen, but I've used exactly the same techniques. The image was used was Alice from Alice in Wonderland. So that gave me a really strong connection for a quote that I wanted to write on the page from the book of Alice in Wonderland. But as I was doing this, there's a particular mermaid quote which I love, which I wanted to put on this page too. Now again, I'm not the best calligrapher by any stretch of the imagination, but I wanted to handwrite this on, and just by going slow, I found that I'm able to kind of get it the way I want. Now I've got my phone out, I'm looking up the quote on Pinterest, and I find if I'm looking for quotes in particular, if I go to Pinterest, I can find quite a lot of them, and it comes up, sometimes it comes up in beautiful script fonts that you can try and emulate yourself. In this case it was just typed out, so I'm trying to write it out. I'm cheating somewhat. I'm using a Stabilo oil pencil to begin with to write out my quote, just to get an idea, get my hand going the way I want it to, and now I'm going back in with a food ball pen. So the quote is, "She is a mermaid, but approach her with caution. Her mind swims at a depth most people drown at," I think is the quote. And I like that because I'm in particular a overthinker, and that one really appeals to me. So after I've written it out, I go back in with some other pens just to thicken up the lines. So I'm using the Jane Davenport License to Quill pen, which is a flexible brush pen. Now the reason I didn't use that to begin with was it is flexible, so I'm still learning about up and down strokes and how to do it. So I like having something as a model to go over to begin with, and even with this I've found that I'd press down the wrong places and I'd make it a little bit too thick. I'm using the black, even though in pages it's a little bit hard to read. In person it's much easier, and I knew that I was going to go back in with a white paint pen to add in some shadows. So the good thing about that pen, apart from the fact that it's a flexible brush pen, is it's also excuse me, permanent, and it dries really quickly. So I knew I was able to go over this with the white paint pen fairly immediately. The foodball pen, on the other hand, takes a little while to dry and is water reactive. So if you put the white paint pen next to that, you need to make sure it is really, really dry before you do it. But with the License to Quill pen, I could go over it almost straight away. When I do my shadowing with white pen, I always go on the left-hand side, so left-hand side to the bottom. And I find if I've got a plan of where I'm going to shadow, it makes it a little bit easier because I just need to do the same thing over and over. I don't really need to think about where the shadow's going. I know it's going to be on the left and on the bottom. So particularly with script writing, sometimes it's a little bit tricky to work out which bit you highlight and which bit you don't. This is pretty much the finished page. I decided in the end I would just go back in and put the author of the quote in the football pen in bold writing down the bottom. So this is a close-up of the final page. I really love this page, and so much so it's why I did another page of the same. And again, a big shout out to Michelle Logan, who was the inspiration for this page. So this is the Alice in Wonderland page. In the Garden of Memory and the Palace of Dreams is where you and I shall meet, which I liked the contrast between the little Alice in the keyhole and the larger Alice looking really free in the garden. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye for now.